Hi, everyone. This is Scott here talking about our risk ratio assignment for week 3. This is thinking about it in terms of calculating disproportionality. And as you kind of started to learn this week, we really are thinking about disproportionality is, do certain students from certain groups, racial and ethnicity groups, are they more likely to, say, in this particular case, be verified for a disability or specifically for emotional disturbance? And I think some of the times we struggle and we don't really see the problem until we see some data in front of us. So it's always good to be able to learn how to calculate this disproportionality, and we do that using risk ratio. There's some software that calculates it automatically, like everything, but this is hopefully pretty simple math that we can kind of get an idea of this particular school district. So we're going to run through this really, really quick, but if you have questions, email me for sure. So the first thing you're going to do is make a copy. I'm assuming you guys know how to make a copy in Google Docs, but if you don't, go file, make a copy. You're going to rename it as your name and then risk ratio assignment. So here's mine, Scott Ekman risk ratio assignment. Here's what we need to know. Here's the current enrollment for Washington School District. Here's the total number for each racial ethnicity group. Here is students with disabilities in specific categories. So the number of students verified for special education services. First thing you'll notice is that this top row is identified with just a disability, no particular category of disability, but they're verified for special education. So that's one of the numbers that we're going to want to know. And then it goes into the actual categories down below. And then you'll see emotional disturbance is at the bottom. We're going to use that here in a little bit. First thing we're going to calculate is the risk. So how likely is a student from a specific racial ethnicity group, how likely is it that for them to be verified for special education services? We do this by calculating and dividing the number of children in a specific racial ethnicity group by the total number of children in that specific group enrolled in the district. So for example, if we have 10 Asian children verified for special education, and we have 100 Asian students enrolled in the district, we would divide 10 by 100 and we would get 10%. This is the likelihood that an Asian student would be verified for special education. We'd say something like, we could say Asian students have a 10% chance of being verified. So your first table you're going to complete is the verified with a disability. So you're going to take this number here that I have highlighted, and you're going to divide it by this number, the total for each racial ethnicity group. Okay, so you would take 16 for American Indian or Alaskan Native and divide it by 258, and then you would come up with a percentage here. Then what I'd like you to do is write 2 statements summarizing the data. You can basically choose any data point here and write a statement that's similar to the one in the example. You don't have to change the wording that much, but just how would you summarize this data for a school district? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to collect risk ratio. So again, this is basically taking that risk, but we're going to compare it to others, all other students in the district. So basically what we would say is we're going to have, say, for example, our Asian students. We're going to look at Asian students who are verified over the total Asian total enrollment. And then we're going to compare that to students who are not Asian that are verified and not Asian total enrollment. So from our previous example, we had 10 Asian students who were verified, over 100 Asian students enrolled. That's 10%. Then let's say we have 10 non-Asian students who are verified for special ed, over 200 non-Asian students enrolled. That's 5%. We would take these two numbers and divide them. 10 divided by 5 equals 2.0. So we could say, excuse me, Asian students are twice as likely to be verified than their non-Asian peers. So in the table below, we're going to calculate the risk ratio for each racial ethnic group. So again, the number, this row here is the one you already did. You did this up here in this table. So you're going to copy that into this row. Then you're going to do a little math. And basically, you're going to say all students who are, for example, not American Indian or Alaskan Native sorry for the scroll, but by looking at this total number here, you're going to add up the rest here. And then the identified, you're going to add up the rest here. So this will be your numerator, and this will be your denominator, adding those up. So basically, here's the American Indian or Alaskan Native, 16 over 258. You would find that risk already. Now, what's everyone else? So all these added up, or all of these added up here over all of these added up here. That is how you'll get this row. And then you basically take the two percentages and you divide them, you get 2.0. Again, write two statements summarizing the statement. Like, for example, in our example, Asian students are 2 times more likely to be verified as a student with a disability than their non-Asian peers. We could say that that's pretty disproportionate. Then we're going to do risk and risk ratio of being verified as just a student with an emotional disturbance. This is going to be the exact same method, but we're changing our denominator. We're changing our total. So instead of total enrolled, we're going to look at total verified. So basically, the percentage of students who are verified in a specific racial or ethnic group with an emotional disturbance over that specific group over non-verified special education. So that's kind of the risk and the risk ratio. So calculating divided by number specific racial or ethnic group identified with ED by the number of total groups in that children in that group verifies for special ed. So again, if we say we have 10 students, Asian students verified with emotional disturbance over 100 Asian students that are verified just in special education, that would be 10%. Likelihood that a student is verified as emotional disturbance, 10%. Risk ratio, same thing. So Asian students verified with an emotional disturbance over Asian total verified. Non-Asian verified with emotional disturbance over non-Asian total verified. So again, we would go through that, we divide, and we get the good. So I put all the numbers here. So really, again, you think about it, for our American Indian, Alaskan Native, we have 6 students with emotional disturbance over 16. That gives you this percentage. Then you would add up the rest of these over the rest of them verified. That gives you this percentage. Don't include the example. Okay, sorry, don't include the example number, but the rest of them over the rest of them, and then that gives you this percentage, and then you divide the two. And you get a risk ratio, and you write summarizing statements for that as well. Disproportionality, again, it's tough. In the discipline kind of world, we look at it from like 1.75 and above is kind of considered disproportionate. Like if there's a risk ratio of 1.75 or above, we would say that's pretty disproportionate. But you'll notice in the Nebraska State Department of Education's guidance, they talk about a risk ratio of, I think, 3 or above, and for an extended period of time. So their guidelines for being disproportionate are different. I personally, if we start to think about things as a specific racial or ethnicity group is twice as likely to be verified, say with an emotional disturbance, than another, I could see that, or then the rest of, excuse me, not another, the rest of children who are verified, I would say that that's pretty disproportionate. So take a look at this. I hope the math isn't too bad, but I think it's always a good thing to be able to recognize how to calculate this when we think about disproportionality. Like I said, if you have any questions, please let me know. But once you finish that and you add those statements at the end, then you'll submit this through Canvas. So, all right, thank you and have a good week.